By the end of this video, you should be knowledgeable about how to automate spreadsheets. I'm assuming you have no knowledge of how to automate or how to code. And so we're going to start with a very blank page, just like you would if you knew nothing, had nothing. You can go to sheet.new and create a blank sheet just like this. I'm going to try to walk you step by step through the process of your first automation. And I'm going to do that by sharing with you the very first automation that I made myself in Google Sheets. So prior to learning Google Sheets and AppScript about 10 years ago, I was already using Excel VBA. And I switched to a company where they were using Google Sheets. They had been using Google Sheets for 6 months. There was one person who created their Google Sheet, and they had no automation. They just designed a spreadsheet. But 8 people needed to use that spreadsheet from now on, and they were doing this one thing over and over and over again and screwing it up every single time. So what they had is some, let's call this data 1, data 2, and they had a status column. Let's call this the C column. And they had some more data, and they just had a bunch of data here, but they had this status, and it could be active, sent, inactive, lost, one, whatever it could be, whatever it was. They had a lot of like different versions of this. Now, the first thing you might want to do is make like a drop-down menu. So we'll do that. Let's create a drop-down menu, and we're going to create the same things we have over here: sent, inactive, lost, one. And what we're going to do in our automation is anytime we set this to lost, this drop down to lost, or one, we're going to move it to another tab. We're going to move the entire row of data. So we're going to click done here. And instead of C2, we're actually going to write C2:C done. So now every single one of these is one of these options. So let's write some data first. Let's call this data second. So it's a header, data third. And I'm going to not delete any extra lines or rows or columns, but usually I would in a good spreadsheet. You know what I am going to do? I'm going to use my free extension, Sheet Styles, to make this a little nicer experience for us. This is just if you're using Google Sheets for a long time, every day. I'm going to change this to Papyrus style. It decreases the contrast a little bit, really helps your eyes not get headaches and not get strained over long periods of time using spreadsheets. That's about it. It's a free Google Sheet add-on. Literally go up to add-ons, get add-ons, and look for Sheet Styles. Absolutely free. Go grab it now. In one click, you saw how it worked. All right, let's do this. Data 1 across the board. Data 1, data 1, data 1. And then we're going to drag this down. There we go. To some, just so we have something to look at, because we're going to be moving tabs. In automation, here's sort of the simplest way I can explain automation in Google Sheets to help you come up with the ways in which you might want to automate or think about automating. One thing is having structured data. Make sure you know exactly where data is and ultimately where you want it to go or how you want to transform it, or what you want to transform it into. What is the input and what is the output you desire? Those two things are incredibly important. We'll deal with the middle from the input to the output in a second. Make sure you have structured data. That is rule number 1. So in this particular case, we have a spreadsheet, one single tab that has exactly the same data in every column, every row that is labeled here, and we're just changing the status. And we ultimately want, when a user clicks on one of these, either lost or won, we want to move it to another tab called lost or won. This is the second rule. Make sure you actually have an event or something, some action that a user takes or a particular time. So there could be either event-driven or time-driven automations. One of those two. In this case, we are using an event that a user is taking. This can, if you've never done automation before, you might start thinking, I want to do something automatically. But what you really need to think about is doing that something automatically when something happens. And I can't be more clear about that. And actually, I can say that in a bunch of different ways. And one of the clearest ways you can probably think about this is knowing all of the ways to automate. What events? In this particular case, I happen to know that this is an onEdit event. We can capture this event with an onEdit trigger. And so what we're going to do is going to go up to extensions app script. And again, there's no coding whatsoever yet. I'll be coding this along with you, and you don't have to know anything outside of this video to do this. What we're going to do is call our function onEdit. This is what's called a simple trigger, and every single time a cell is edited in a sheet or in your complete spreadsheet file, this will trigger. It will trigger an event. And this event we will use to know what is happening. So we only want to trigger this functioning when a certain events happen. And we'll do that together here. So this onEdit, you just type. You don't have to install anything. You don't have to do anything else other than type it. It is lowercase o and a capital E. Make sure you have those. I use event here in this particular case, but sometimes when I want to go fast and I know what it is, this variable is called E. And this is E also in a lot of the Google Sheets documentation. Let's look at that. It's a simple trigger, and we can see it here on open E, on install E. These are simple triggers as well, but here's the onEdit E. This E they use is exactly the same as what I'm going to use, event, except I'm just using 5 characters and they're using 1 character. This may be complicated for those who are new to AppScript and variables, but for example, I am only using event here. Now we want to know when someone clicks somewhere or when they enter any data, like we're filling out this sort of sheet, right, with some sales information or licensing information. That's what I did. This is the very first script I ever wrote. It took me about 2 weeks to write this, so this is not going to take 2 weeks to make this video. We're going to walk through the whole process here in a few minutes, but it did take me about 2 weeks to learn this when I first learned it without any other information. And so what we're going to do is, upon editing this column, C column, to lost or 1, we're going to move it to that particular sheet. So we need structured data to begin with and end with. And so to end with, we need a lost tab. So let's call this sales. We're going to actually duplicate this for now, but I'm going to delete everything there. And I'm going to call this lost. Then I'm going to duplicate it again and call it 1 with 1 O, 1. Now this is where we want to get to. So again, our input is we have our structured data here on sales, and upon someone clicking on the C column and selecting one of these, which is an editing, we are editing it to 1, we then want the structured output is move this entire row over to 1. But the thing is, here's the one key about automation in Google Sheets you might want to know, is that sometimes what you want to do, like the language you use, is not going to be the exact language used in AppScript or JavaScript or coding. And sometimes you're going to have to sort of break apart even simple ideas that you may think are simple. You're going to have to break them down to their very much more elemental statuses. So, for example, there is no move. There is no move in AppScript. However, there are 2 things that add up to move. I'm going to write some what's called pseudocode here. We're going to write this out, and I'll get to what elements we need. But essentially, we want to move upon the row column being edited. Get the row on the column in the sheet. So we need to make sure we're in the right sheet, on the right column, we're editing. We want to get the row, and then we're going to move the row to either lost or 1 based on what the column was edited to. Okay, and again, we don't have a move. There's no move. So what we're going to have to do is first copy the row to either lost or 1, and then we're going to delete the row that was edited, okay, in our original sheet. This copy and delete ends up being move. So sometimes this happens a lot. This happened a lot of time. I wasted a lot of time early on in my Google Sheets experience searching for things that didn't exist because the words that I used just weren't the same words as the JavaScript or the AppScript at the time. So I did make some tools to help you. There's like a formula generator on bettersheets.co. If you're a BetterSheets member, you can use it for free. bettersheets.co/formula, Google Sheets formula generator. That's for formulas. I don't yet have one for AppScript, but I may be working on that soon. But BetterSheet members are more than welcome to email me your convoluted ideas, what you want to do, and I may be able to help sort of change your words around or ask you particular questions, especially when you're doing AppScript and automating things for the first time. I'm going to ask you, what is the triggering event you want to do? What's your structured data input? What's your structured data output? Those are the three things. If you know those three things, oh my God, it's going to be so much easier. Okay, so this is pseudocode. These are just comments. This is 2 slashes. This is not code. It's just me writing. But let's start coding and automating this, right? So first off, the thing about onEdit is that it will trigger on every single edit across the entire sheet. We only care if this event is on Sales tab and in this C column. So we can get that from the event. So we can get so we'll create variable, which variables are like information that we can name ourselves. So we're just naming the information. We're figuring out the information and then we name it. So what is this name of this information? It's going to be column. Variable column is equal to event.range.getColumn. We can always check this in a second, but let's look at sheet as well. Variable sheet equals event. I think it's source get name logger.log. So logger helps us know if we're getting the correct information. So sometimes we might just have to try this stuff out, get some kind of error. So we saved it. You can click on the save project. First time you save it might take a moment, but let's look at this. I'm going to just select this, switch it to lost, and we should actually call this something. Automate Google Sheets. Call this, rename it. Over here, we look at executions. It is completed, and this is perfect. We got 3, which is the C column. So C in our structured data is number 3, the 3rd column. And we're getting the sheet name, not the sheet name, the spreadsheet name here. So let's fix this. And again, I'm doing this without any experience. You might run into this. So this logger helps us know what is actually happening. Let's look at the sheet when these events happen. I think we need to let's Google this. Get sheet name from onEdit event. Use onEdit trigger. It's purple, so I must have been here before. I Google these things all the time. I've been coding for 10 years and I still Google all the time. Okay, it says get sheet name, but let's look at the get active sheet dot get name. That looks like it should work. So let's change this to, instead of event.source.getActiveSheet.get sheet name. We're going to save that. I'm looking at this e.source.getActiveSheet, and then here ActiveSheet.get name. That's what we did wrong. Just copy that. Okay. Save project. Let's edit this back to 1, and now we will have another execution. Let's look at our log. Perfect. So now we have the column number and the sheet. Okay, this is going to get a little more complicated, but we're going to use an if. If column, 2 equal signs. So this is sort of saying is equal. I know equals means equals, but like in our coding case, we need 2 equal signs because equals is actually assigning this variable column to whatever the output of this is. And then the 2 equal sign is asking, is it equal to? That's why we need that. Is column equal to 3? And we want 2 things to be true. We want the column to be 3 and sheet equals sales. Sorry, is equal to 2 equal signs. So both of these things must be true in order to execute in these curly brackets what we're going to do. So we want this. So essentially, we want to get the row. So that's going to be variable row equals. Let's get this column. And instead of get column, we do get row. Couldn't be easier to get the row. So now we have the row that is happening. We can also look at this logger.log row. And let's just save it and double check that we are correct. So we are changing 1 to lost in row 5, or lost to 1 in row 5. Let's look at our execution. Maybe takes a moment to get there. Let's refresh. Does take like moments. 5, perfect. Row 5. We are rocking and rolling. So now we want to copy the row over from based on won or loss. So let's look at how do we get the event. We do onEdit value app script. Let's look at that. Let's see if we can look at event value. I think it's just dot value. I think that's what it is. So we can always check it. Logger.log edit value. Up here, we're going to do variable edit value equals e.value. And we're going to check that this is correct by switching this to lost, looking at our, not our triggers, but our executions. Failed. E is not defined. Oh, I think I might have written E instead of event. Right, okay, perfect. Don't worry about failures. Failures will usually tell you where you've gone wrong and actually literally tell you what you need to fix. So in our executions in a failure, it literally read, reference error E is not defined at onEdit code 619. This is row 6. So we go to our code, edit this code here, row 6, and that's exactly where our error was. Let's change this over to 1 in row 5. Let's go back to our executions. Completed, perfect, and we have 1. Now we know exactly what value is being edited. And we can say inside of this if value is equal to 1, now do something. So now we want to copy it to the 1 column. Okay, let's do variable row to move equals, we need spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet dot get sheet by name. It's going to be on the sales page because we checked that here, sheet equals sales, so we know where it's on the sales page. We can actually call this sales. Variable row equals sales dot get range. The range is going to be the row, and we want the entire row. So we're going to use column. We need max rows. So variable rows count, or no, not rows, column count is equal to sales dot. That's however many columns there are on our spreadsheet. So we're going to put that column count right there. Actually, we want, so this range is 4 items. You can actually see it when we do row. It's 4 items. Row column. Column is starting 1. Now number of rows, 1. The columns is going to be column count. Okay, so that's 4 things that we need here. But we're going to get the range and we're going to get values, the entire range. Actually, we just need the range there, I think. And we do row.copy to. Let's get the values. Row to move. Let's call it that. There you go. Copy to. And where do we want to copy it to? So this gives us an example that we need to know on the 1 sheet, right? So let's look at that. Let's add a variable 1 and call this 1. We want to get the range, which we want to know. Variable last row on 1 is equal to 1.get last row. So that's the last row with data on it. But we're going to actually do last row on 1 plus 1 and column 1. Number of rows 1. Number of columns is probably our same column count. We probably want to have exactly the same number of columns on both sheets. Why is this? So we need 1 more parentheses here at the end. There we go. And so now this is the line that's really doing all of the work here. It's taking the row to move and it's copying it to our 1 sheet and it's saying put it on the last row that has data plus 1 and put it on the entire column. Take that and put it there, right? And now we need to go back and essentially we need to delete the row that we had before. So we want to take this row to move. Actually, we don't need that. We want sales.delete row. And the row position is the row that we already have. So now hopefully, if we change something to 1, let's change data 6 to 1, it disappeared. And on our 1 column, our 1 sheet, it now has appeared. Isn't that cool? So the only thing we need to do now is add lost. So we want to do the exact same thing, but the edit value is lost, and we change the sheet name to lost. It's going to do exactly the same thing, but if it's lost, we want to move it to lost. Okay? So save that. Let's make sure it saves first. Go back to our sales and change this one to lost. So that's data 5. Look at lost now. It is data 5. So now we have automated completed our first automation, right? We have copy the row, either lost or won, based on only doing it when it's in column 3 and it's sales and the edit value is won or lost. We can change it to inactive and nothing is happening. Inactive, nothing is happening. Active. If we change it to lost, that's data 4. We can see here it is data 4. And what's saving us is essentially this last row. Oh, we have to change last row on 1 to lost. And this should be just for readability. We want to change all of this to lost. This is just so it's easier to read. Perfect. Let's just keep making sure that this works. And we've done our first automation. And hopefully you've been able to get through this without having any experience whatsoever. But now you can create a really cool automation knowing we have the exact trigger we want, which is a edit change to something specific. We have our structured data, which is all of our rows on our sales page, and our structured output, which is we want to put it on lost or won. So let's change this to 1, data 8, and look at data 8. There it is, data 8. Isn't this pretty cool? I hope you had a good time watching this. If you're a Better Sheets member, you can get the spreadsheet down below. If you're not, hopefully you'll watch again and get all of this app script yourself. Copy it, try it on your sheet. If you have any difficulties, let me know. Happy to help you along the way. Also, if you have not yet checked it out, on Better Sheets, I have Spreadsheet Automation 101. On Udemy, I have Master Spreadsheet Automation. On Udemy, Master Spreadsheet Automation is a bunch of courses all combined. It includes automating, what I've shown you here, plus a lot more of an app script. It shows you how to learn shows you app script completely. Then it shows you how to integrate APIs. It shows you how to integrate AI, how to literally use ChatGPT inside of your spreadsheet. Some really, really cool stuff across there. Udemy, again, Master Spreadsheet Automation on bettersheets.co. Go check out Spreadsheet Automation 101 to get further, deeper into this. I'm excited that you are able to automate your Google Sheets with zero experience, and I was very glad to be able to start your spreadsheet automation journey. Thank you. Bye.